Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go. All right, we are on. Mr. Larry Goins is our guest today. Mr. Godfather, been in the business a long, long time. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing awesome, man. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, It's great to have you on. It's been a while since we talked. We met several years ago, and you've been doing some great things over the years. You've done a lot of education and seminars and sharing your knowledge and lots of great stuff. So when I put this together, you're one of the people that I thought of. So I guess just go ahead. I'll let you take it over. Introduce yourself to the people, what you've got going on, and I guess what you specialize in.
Sure. So Larry Goins, I live in Lake Wiley, South Carolina, a little small town just south of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I've been doing real estate, man, over 34 years now. And I bought my very first house, and I think it was 86, maybe, something like that. Yeah, it's crazy, right? But and by the way, it was an FHA non-qualifying assumable loan. They stopped those in the 70s. And
so you assumed it from someone else, basically?
Yeah. Say that again?
You assumed it from someone else?
I did. I just took over the loan, and you could do that with FHA back then. They stopped that in the late 70s, but there were still a few of them left over for the next 5 to 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, that was my first deal. But we bought and sold probably 1,000 properties in 12 different states, and I've written a few books about real estate. One is called Getting Started in Real Estate Day Trading, and the other one is called HUD Homes Half Off, How to Buy HUD Houses for Pennies on the Dollar. I tell Chris Chico this, he's a good friend of mine. I tell him I was doing virtual investing before he came up with the term virtual investing.
Nice. So when you say virtual investing, what markets did you go into, and tell us about that? Because a lot of people, they have competitive markets and want to venture out into other markets. And I get that question quite a bit. They're like, should I go into other markets? So tell us about that, how you put that together.
Well, my very first deal that was virtual, and this was years and years ago, I had put out some bandit signs, right? So I get this call from this lady named Rochelle, and she had a house over in Fairmont, North Carolina. It was about 3.5 hours away from me, right? So she tells me about the property, and I'm looking it up, and I made her an offer of $2,500, right? She wanted $15,000 for it. I said $2,500 because I'm a firm believer if you're not embarrassed by your offer, it's probably too much anyway.
Right.
So she calls me up. And her grandmother had given her the house. Her grandmother was still living, but she gave her the house, and it had tenants in it paying something like $300 a month, right? So anyway, she didn't want it. She just needed some money. So I made her that offer. I mean, can you believe she didn't hang up on me? That's one of the things we teach our students how to do, is how to make ridiculously low offers and not have them hang up on you. In fact, build a rapport with them. So about a week later, Rochelle calls me back, and she says, Larry, she said, you made an offer on my property. She said, I can't take that, but I will take $3,000 if I can have the money next Friday. So I'm $3,000. Wow. So I said, here's what I want you to do, okay? I want you to take some pictures of the house, inside and out, every room, any repair areas, all mechanical items, all 4 sides of the house, and a street view both ways, okay? This was before smartphones, okay? So guess what she did? She didn't even live in the same town where the house was. She mailed the tenants. Remember those little disposable cameras you could get at CVS and Walgreens? Yeah. She mailed the tenants the camera. The tenants took the pictures. They mailed it to me. I had to go to CVS and get the film developed, right? So I looked at all the pictures, and I said, yes, Rochelle, I'll do it. So what I did was, we didn't even have a contract, Okay. What I did was I told my attorney, I said, I'm buying this house for $3,000. Here's the seller's name. Call her up. Tell her when you got everything ready. Let me know. I'll wire the money into the account. So I wired the money into the account. The attorney called up Rochelle and said, hey, here's where you need to come sign and pick up your money. Right. So I bought this property, never saw the property. I only saw pictures. And to this day, I'm assuming it was pictures of that house, right?
Yep.
But then what I did was I sent out a few emails to local realtors. I started looking online and I started sending out emails to local realtors. I said, I have this house. It's rented out for $300 a month. Tenants are hardly ever there. They're missionaries. They travel. I said, I will sell it for $15,000 and I'll pay you a $3,000 commission, right? So I'm thinking that's the same thing as being on the buy or sell side of $100,000 house, right? $3,000, 3%. So I had several realtors email me back. They're like, Larry, I could sell this for you, no problem. I've attached a 12-month listing. I didn't want to sell it in 12 months. I wanted to sell it tomorrow, right? So one realtor emailed me back and he said, Larry, for $12,000, I'll just buy it myself, right? So sure enough, about a week later, I get a FedEx with a HUD to sign. I sign the HUD with a return FedEx. I send it back. And then the next day, I get another FedEx with a check for $12,000. I'm thinking, man, I just bought this house, never met the seller. I never went to the closing. I never met the tenant. I sold the house. I never met the buyer. Back then, Tony, I did all my business: phone, fax, FedEx, email, and internet. I'm like, man, I got to figure out how to do this again. And that was the beginning of real estate day trading, right? That's what I do now: buy and sell properties over the phone. We don't go look at it. I mean, somebody goes to look at it. I don't go look at it, right? But we do all of our business now: phone, email, and internet. We don't even use fax and FedEx anymore.
So that's interesting. So I live in San Diego. My market's in Wichita, but I technically, I guess, kind of do virtual, not wholesaling, but fix and flip. But I've got a team on the ground. So I've got people
Right.
that I trust that I've had for a long time. So for
Sure.
those that don't have that, do you like set up markets yourself? Or is it basically you just find a deal and then you find your people in that market to do that deal?
I've done deals in 12 different states, but I specifically focus on about 7 different counties outside of where I live. I'm in the Charlotte MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. I'm in the Charlotte MSA, but basically what I do is I go out about 2 counties to the small towns outside of it, right? Like you're in what, Wichita Falls, is it?
Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah, okay. So we would take a major MSA and we go out about 2 counties, and that's where we market, where there's less competition. You have cheaper houses. It's where people were born and raised. They have ties to the community. They want to stay there. You only need one buyer per house. So a lot of people say, oh, small town, you're going to have trouble selling it. I only need one buyer per
Right.
house. That's it, right? So we buy in small town USA. We buy cheap houses. It's not as susceptible to market fluctuations, to all different kind of things that go on in the world and in the economy. And quite frankly, most of our houses are cheap houses. Like right now, I'm buying 3 brick houses side by side for $30,000 for all 3 of them, right? And one of them's rented out for $375. The other one's rent ready, and the other one needs a paint and carpet to get it rent ready. I'm buying another house for $4,000 that we're getting ready to sell it for $15,000. And we've got another property that we bought that has 40 acres, 3,000 feet on a huge creek that's almost like a small river, and has some wetlands in the back, and has a house with a barn. We're buying it for 100 and selling it for 159.9. Nice. So yeah, there's a lot lot of great opportunities, but quite frankly, most of our deals are under $50,000. And what I have found, Tony, in my 30 plus years in doing this, small town is where it's at. And also, a $30,000 house is always going to be a $30,000 house. I don't have to worry about a $300,000 house. When the market tanks, it goes down to worth 250, right? And I don't have to worry about inspections, appraisals, financing, market conditions, lenders, any of that stuff. All my deals are cash transaction. I either wholesale the property, which is real estate day trading, or I sell or finance the deal, one of the two.
So I have a story kind of similar to yours. My first deal that I bought outside my market, someone called me, and it was a town about 2.5 hours away, and they wanted 70 grand for this house. And I just kept blowing them off, and they just kept blowing up my phone. I don't know why they kept calling me. Of course, this was close to 15 years ago. So this was, there wasn't near as much competition, but eventually
Right.
he kept calling and lowering his price. Like he was negotiating himself down. And finally he's like, just give me $25,000. You can have this house. And I'm like, what the? And so I did. I called someone that was in that area. They drove by it, verified it was there. They're like, this is a $100,000 neighborhood. I did the same thing, signed the contract. He actually drove in, signed it with me, didn't look at the house, closed on it. We went and cleaned it up, and we sold it for, it was either $65,000 or $69,000, and all we did was clean it out. So we made $40,000 on a $65,000 house. So
Nice. Yeah,
based on
baby. That's what I'm talking about.
those are awesome. So based on what you said and what I just told you about that deal, it's not necessarily the location of the property. It's buying at a price that you're comfortable enough with buying it at, even if you haven't seen it. Are there any other intricate details that you can share about that? Because that's, again, there's so many people right now that tell me their market is competitive, and they need to go out, they need to do something else. And I haven't advised them I haven't advised them to not go out of their market, but I've told them if they do it, they need to be really careful because so many things can happen outside of your area. So are there any other nuggets that you could share of maybe things things that you've run into that people should avoid?
Well, there's a lot of different things, but I love the small towns. Number one, you don't have the competition. See, when you are in a big MSA, like you and I both know a lot of guys that are in Phoenix or in wherever it is, Charlotte, North Carolina, or in Orlando, or they're in Orange County, California, or Chicago, or something. I mean, these big markets, there's a lot of competition, right? I mean, one of your sales guys will go to a house and they got a stack of postcards on the kitchen table from other marketers, right? And they're getting text messages from other ones while they're sitting there with you. So, one of the things I've learned about small town, not near as many people are marketing to them, and you don't have to worry about the competition. See, when you're in a major MSA, you've got to have follow-up campaigns, you got to have closing, you got to have acquisition guys that know how to close, know how to handle objections. You got to have guys that know how to close the deal, right? That know how to use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, mirror and matching people, that sort of thing, right? When you're in small town USA, all you got to do is be a good old boy, right? Or girl, right? Hey, how y'all doing? What's going on? So you thinking about selling a house? Yeah, I could probably help you. I've been doing this a long time. I'll make it a very simple process for you. I mean, we have all the follow-up systems, the campaigns with email, SMS, RVM, all that stuff. But when you go into small towns are much more forgiving, and you can be more successful quicker in a small town. Plus, the values are a little bit lower, and it really does help out.
One thing that scares people away, and I even have this philosophy to a point, because I own, I've got over 100 rental properties, and I've got probably a handful, I would say, that are under $30,000 to $40,000. And I've tried to kind of stay away from those unless, if I can buy them for $3,000 to $5,000, then I would buy them. but there are a lot of people that stay away from those deals. Now, tell me, so, obviously you buy it for 3,000, you sell it for 12,000, that's a no-brainer. But for those deals that are rented that you may not be able to sell, I mean, tell me, I guess, a little bit about those. Do you keep those long term, those properties that are rented? Do you wait for them to move out if they're rented and sell them? Like, what's your, like, obviously you have multiple strategies. So tell us about your, I guess, your hold strategy, if you have that, and how that plays into your game as well.
Great question. I'm really glad you brought that up. Listen, I've been doing real estate a long time, right? Longer than some of the guys we know have been living, right? So there's two things about real estate I hate, okay? Well, there's actually three. There's three things about real estate I hate. Rehabs, okay? I hate rehabs. And guess what? I'm a licensed GC, okay? But I hate rehabs. Hate rehabs, dealing with contractors, and I am a contractor, okay? Number two is I hate short sales, okay? A short sale is a long buy. I've said that for years. And the third thing I hate is tenants, okay? I hate tenants. I hate dealing with tenants. So what I do is, if I'm going to keep a lower price property, which is a very valid point that you brought up, if I'm going to keep a lower price property, I'm going to not have a tenant. I'm going to have a homeowner in training. All right. That's why I call it a homeowner in training. We're going to put them on the path to home ownership. Okay. We're going to make them put some skin in the game. They're going to be responsible for some repairs. And if it works out okay for the first year, then we'll give them an option to buy the house. Okay. We're going to give them an agreement to be able to option the house. Right. And then we're going to be able to give them an option to buy the house. And then if they pass that for the next year, then we'll sell it to them on a land contract, right? So because when you're seller financing or renting a property, your first year is your most critical. If they could pass the first year, you know this, if they could pass the first year, you're just about home free with them, right? So especially on the cheaper houses. So we want to help them, but we want them to have some skin in the game.
Now,
Okay?
talk about skin in the game. So you said land contract, which basically is an owner carry, right? So after a year, you do an owner carry where you're financing the property. What does that first year look like? Is that just renting? Is it rent to own? Like, what do you call that first year where you train them to be a homeowner?
The first year we'll give them an option, right? We'll give them an option to buy the property. And then we want to make sure that they know they're responsible for the repairs. Okay. Now you've got to be very careful with this because, we all know about Dodd-Frank, right? Dodd-Frank is, limits the number of seller finance deals you can do if you're dealing with consumers. And you want to be careful where if you're doing a lease option with somebody and you have to evict them, you don't want them to go to court and, and the judge says, oh, wait a minute. According to your paperwork here, they have what's called equitable interest. You're going to have to foreclose on them now. They're not really a tenant. So you have to be very careful in the things that you do. So what we do is we make their option consideration apply toward their closing cost. Okay. And what has to happen for them to get that equitable interest is they have to actually close. Okay. So the other thing that we do is if they're responsible for the repairs, any judge, if you go in front of a court, a judge is going to tell you, you can't keep all the benefits and give away all the risk. So what we do is, we tell them you're responsible for any repairs up to X dollars per month, right? It may be $150 per month or $250 per month or something like that, depending on the amount of rent, right? If it's a $300 a month house, it's not going to be much. If it's $1,000 a month house, it might be $250 a month, right? So you can't make them responsible for a new roof, heating and air, things like that, right? You've got to put a limit on it, right? To where you still have some responsibility But what you're doing is training that person to be a homeowner and unclog their own toilet, right? Unclog their own toilet and fix their own little things and make sure they don't tear up the house in the meantime because they in their mind they're buying it.
And again, going back to skin in the game, so we do similar to what you do. We do rent to own, which is a rental agreement with an option to purchase, and we do that.
Two separate agreements, right?
Two separate agreements. That way, if they don't pay, then we take the rental agreement to court and say they are paying rent, or we're paying rent, and now they're not. We can evict them.
Great point.
And we require 3.5% down. Now, on lower priced houses, that may not be that much money. What's your philosophy on that? How much skin in the game do you like to have your people to have?
How much do you have to work with?
That's your question, is what you're saying?
That's it. If
Yeah.
they say I have $3,000, well, let me ask you a question. And sometimes they'll say, how much do you require down? Well, typically on average, it's about 20% is what people put down when they buy a house, right? 20%. On this house, it's a $50,000 house. That would be $10,000. Is that something you think you could do if I could help you become a homeowner without having to go through the bank? Well, no. How close can you come? Well, I might be able to do 4. Well, let me ask you a question. Because I really want to help you here. I want to help you become a homeowner. But is there anybody you could reach out to that might be able to help you with your initial investment? Notice I didn't say down payment that time. I said initial investment on your house, on your new home, right? I'm even going to refer to it as a home, not a house. On your new home, right? And well, I don't know, mom might be able to help me. Great. What's her number? Right? So I'll call them and talk to mom myself, right? And I tell you what, I'll always get the money, especially if they're living with mom right now, right? Because mom is basically paying to get them out of her house, right?
No, I love that. It's kind of like asking the question when you're negotiating with a seller. If I were to pay you cash, close on the day of your choice, what is the least you'd be willing to take for your property? And there's obviously different variations of that question.
Right.
So rather than naming your price, having them name the down payment, I like that. That's a good strategy.
We always try to bump them up. Is there anybody that can co-sign to get a loan? Do you have a retirement account? Is there anybody that has a retirement account, can borrow against it? Is there anybody that owes you money? Do you have any vehicles? Do you have anything you could sell or trade or barter? I've taken cars, boats, guns, gold, all kind of things as partial down payment.
That's good stuff. Because obviously the more skin they have in the game, the more likely they are to go through, and it lessens your risk because, there is a statistic that says how many people go through with that. And my average is way higher than the national average. I'm sure yours is too, because it sounds like you have a good system.
Well, you also got to realize that if they themselves, the person living in it, has zero money to put into it, and mom and dad or grandma or grandpa is putting up 100% of the money, they're not going to be there very long, right? Because it's not their money. They don't care, So I do want, if at all possible, I'll take the parents' money, but if at all possible, I want the person living there to have some of their own skin in the game.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. Really good point. So you've been in the business for 34 years. Times have changed, right?
Oh, man.
You don't have, Polaroid or throwaway cameras anymore.
There were no RIA groups when I started.
Right. So tell us today. So things have changed even in the last few years. I'm sure you've seen this in your market and probably other markets. Is there's so much access to information, so there's so much competition. So we investors have to be creative, right? There's so many different new methods of finding motivated sellers. So what are some things that you could share today that you're doing today that you didn't do a year ago, 3 years ago, or even 5 years ago?
Wow, great. So I used to buy all my properties through MLS and HUD, right? And then whenever the market changed and got so much competition, there weren't as many, properties on the market, I had to go direct to seller again. Used to do that years ago, but then I had to go back again. So when we started going back direct to seller in 2018, I was a little behind on that because a lot of people were already exhausting, MLS and HUD and all that stuff, auction sites. But because I went wide instead of going deep in one market, I went wide. Like I was making an offer on every single HUD house in North Carolina and South Carolina and Alabama every single day, right? So I was going wide instead of going deep in one market. But there came a point that even at that point, I couldn't continue to do 5, 10, 15 deals a month, right? So we started doing direct mail. One of the big things we do is we use a specialty list from Aldantic, and it's a very expensive list, but it goes through multiple data, data.
Points.
I don't even. I'm sorry.
Data points.
Data points. Yes. Yeah. And it's almost like list stacking, but I don't know, but I love that list. It's very expensive.
Is that Chris Richter?
It is. It is. I love that list. We use it. I'm getting ready to double the size of my list. I mail out 25,000 now. Getting ready to bump up to either 37.5 or 50,000. But we love that list. We also do some RVM with that list, ringless voicemail, some SMS. We also use a CRM called Podio that we had custom designed, and we're always updating and upgrading it. And I love that CRM. We use smartphone, smrtphone.io, which integrates with Podio. So when somebody calls, I could see they're calling. I could see who it is. It goes right into Podio CRM. And I've got a lead manager. She takes all the leads that come in. She's in the Philippines. She's been with us now for about a year. She does really, really well. And so we have automatic follow-up campaigns, sequences. And I mean, I'll get, it's kind of funny that I'll get just random text messages from people coming back through the CRM that says, yes, I'm ready to sell right now. I mean, we also get some that say it's sold or I'm not interested or stop messaging me, whatever. But they get a text every single month. Hey, this is Larry. I was just following up. We spoke a while back. I was just following up to see if you still had a house you wanted to sell, right? And some of them are no. Some of them are leave me alone. Some of them are it's sold. Some of them are, yeah, I'm ready now.
So when you buy that list from Aldantic, you send them out mailers and you text message them, so you hit them from both angles.
You know what? We were doing some SMS marketing, but we don't really do much of that. The better quality lead is, for us anyway, is when they get a postcard and they pick up the phone and call us.
Right.
I would much rather somebody call us because now we're answering the phone. Hey, this is Larry. How can I help you? Right? Instead of sending them an SMS or cold calling or whatever. And, hey, I know it's a shot in the dark, but do you happen to have an interest in selling? It's all great ways to market, but we get much, much better response when they call us and we're answering the phone. Right.
So smrt.io, is that similar to CallRail or is that different?
It's similar to CallRail, but smartphone integrates with Podio seamlessly. What CRM do you use?
Well, we're using Podio and we custom built it. We did the whole thing and it kept failing us for some reason. So about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, we got rid of it. And we went super basic and simple. We were doing spreadsheets and just using Google Docs, but we just started using Trello, which is a project management system. And so we have, when someone calls into CallRail, it goes into Trello, it goes into a spreadsheet, it goes into Trello, and then we can take the leads and put them into, need to follow up hot leads, need to put under contract, dead leads.
Right.
So we just kind of put it in a lead flow. And then the good thing about that is when we start our project management, we just flip that and put it into our project management board, and then it goes all the way through the process. So
good. Well, you do rehabs too, so you have that project management. We don't touch them. We might clean one out. That's about all we ever do with the property.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So you said you hate rehabbing. So you buy property, it's in really bad shape. It's not even in livable shape. Let's say that.
Sure.
So it's a, let's say $30,000 property, whatever the number is, and you're showing someone that property. what gets them to buy that property or do your lease with the option to purchase when that property is not livable? Do they do the work to it? Like, talk us through that, how you get them to commit to something that maybe not be, in livable terms, I should say.
Your absolute best properties to do a homeowner in training are properties that are livable or close to livable,
Okay.
right? So here's the thing, and this is very, very important information right here. If the property is what we call fit and safe, okay? In other words, the hot water heater works, the plumbing works, the electrical works. It's got a deck on the back, but there's rails around the deck, so it's safe. It's fit and safe. You can legally enter into a landlord-tenant relationship on that property. So then we're going to do a rent-to-own or lease option, okay? If this property has some walls that are gutted, the rails off the deck on the back and the deck's 5 feet off the ground, or the hot water heater's been stolen or whatever, we're going to sell that property on a land contract right off the bat, right? If we're going to sell or finance it, or if we're going to keep it in that sense, okay? Most of the time, we would just wholesale that property anyway. We're wholesaling a property now that has a roof that leaks, and some of the ceiling tiles have come down, and the house is full of furniture, but we're buying the house for $4,000, right? We're selling it for 15. So 14.9. And who knows who that buyer is going to be? It might be a landlord, it might be the person next door, it might be somebody who wants to, fix up a property and move into it. We just never know who the buyer is going to be. And we market all of our properties really hard. We market our properties hard, and we want to make sure that we market it because we're always building our buyers list. In fact, most people who buy and wholesale in a major MSA, they have their own buyers list that, about 10 or 20 guys that are, or girls, whatever, that are going to buy all their properties. We don't do that. We got a property here, 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 here. We got them all over the place. We got about 37 deals in our pipeline right now, right? So we've got buyers in 7 different counties and properties in 7 different counties. So we're always building our buyers list to market to, but we're not counting on a few people to buy all of our properties. In fact, the vast majority of the people who buy our properties are brand new buyers that had never heard of us until they saw our property marketed.
So when you say a buyer's list, usually that's investors, but you also build it for homeowners. So you have both investors and potential homeowners. That way you can hit it from both sides.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So you were talking me into not rehabbing because it sounds a lot sexier to not have to rehab and to just put it on the market. And that's one of the things that, I go back and forth on because, and don't get me wrong, every once in a while we'll wholesale a property where I know it's in a great area, it's
Right.
still livable, we can clean it out, it just is updated, and we can make just as much money on wholesaling it as we can actually rehabbing it.
Right.
When was the last time you rehabbed a property?
Probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe.
Not long ago?
And let me tell you that story. It's the very last property I rehabbed. I actually bought it from wow, what is his name? He's in Collective Genius. He bought it through HUD.
Darren?
No. He's in him and Jessica, Lee Bryant and Jessica.
Okay.
I bought it from Lee Bryant. Okay. So it's in Liberty, South Carolina. And he's wholesaled it to us, and then we bought it. We were going to fix it up. So we were getting ready to have an open house this weekend, okay? And it was in the middle of winter, okay? And it was very, very cold, and we had one of the coldest nights we had ever had in the last several years, okay? So next morning, I come into the office and I got a voicemail. There's a person on the phone left a voicemail that said, "Hey, this is so and so, and I live next door to your house in Liberty on such and such a street, I just wanted to let you know that the windows are all steamed up and there's water running out the front door.
Oh, geez.
So we go down there, and here's what happened. The contractor left the water on, but the heat off.
Mm,
And guess what? I'm sure you know this. You're in the rehab business. Insurance companies will not pay if there's water damage because of freezing pipes if the water's on and the heat is not. They
right.
will not pay.
Right.
That was a $75,000 expense.
Wow.
Okay, because we had to take and the leak was from the second story, an exterior window in the bathroom. So the water was coming out of the bathroom, out into the hallway, down into the foyer, down the steps to the first floor.
So
We
you
had
had to start all over. I mean, you had to gut that house completely out.
we had to gut it from knee high on the second floor down, right? So down to the first floor, everything, even subfloor. It was horrible. So, and guess what? Do you think the contractor that did the work had any insurance?
No, heck no.
No, no, not at all. Do you think he would even come back and fix it? No, not at all. Then I had to hire a second guy who is somebody that I found that I actually grew up with that was in the business, and he ended up ripping me off for another 10 grand, right? So we finally got this house finished, finally got it finished, got it put on the market, got a contract, and then the home inspection comes up. And you know, retail and properties, home inspectors, they always find something, right? It always costs you anywhere from $500 to $5,000, right? So they found some other stuff. It's like they're holding you over a barrel, right? They've got you. So it's just that's one of the reasons I hate rehabs. I really do. I like to churn and burn. I like to turn them. I don't want to touch them. You know, I used to when I was wholesaling. I used to get 3 rehab estimates, a CMA comparative market analysis, and an ARV appraisal. And guess what? I had a buyer come back to me one time and said, Larry, I used your appraisal and I used your appraisal to buy this house, and then I sold the house, and you told me I was going to make $50,000. I only made 25,000. What are you going to do about it? I said, I thought for a minute. I said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I promise you, I will never, ever, ever sell you another house you can make $25,000. Right?
So for those that are wholesaling and want to get into rehabbing, this conversation should not talk you out of rehabbing. All the rehabbing.
Oh, exactly. I mean, listen,
like
it's not for everybody, right? There's other people out there that say, why are you wholesaling? You're selling the goose that lays the golden egg, right? But and so everybody's got their own thing. The one thing I learned about real estate, Tony, is you got to do what you enjoy. There's so many things. Years ago, I used to love going into construction projects. I would stop at the store and bring the guys drinks and snacks and all that. We'd walk around, look at the house. I loved the smell of sawdust, but I eventually got over it and I didn't like it anymore. Didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. But there was a time when I loved it, right? So everybody's got to do what they like.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. So if I had to do everything in the rehab process, manage the projects, put them under contract, the whole thing, I've got a team that does all of that. So trust me, if I were in the weeds, I would not want to be in that side of it. I'd want to wholesale, but I've got a really good team that runs the projects, and we can make a lot more money by rehabbing them than we can for wholesale compared to wholesaling. So for us, it makes sense. And like you said, you got to enjoy what you do, and you got to enjoy. Or you got to do what makes sense and run the numbers and see what
exactly.
So
that's exactly right.
Cool. Well, good stuff. What else you want to talk about, Larry? Anything else on your mind? Any other good stuff you want to share with us?
Well, I think one thing that a lot of people don't really talk about or don't really think about is we do a lot of deals where we get the seller to sell us the house with no money down, and finance the house over a long period of time. And there's 2 things you can do with that property too. So if you're far apart, like you need to be here and they're here on the price, I always, always, always ask them, would you consider selling your property on terms if we could meet your price? Now, notice I didn't say, now guys, this is important. Take some notes. Notice I didn't say, would you consider selling your house with owner financing? They don't know what that is, right? Would you consider selling your house on terms, right? Well, what are you talking about, Larry? Well, here's the thing. You told me you've been renting this house out as a landlord for 30 plus years, right? But you're getting up in age. You love the cash flow. You just don't like dealing with tenants, trash, termites, and toilets anymore, right? So, what if I could show you a way you could get rid of the tenants, trash, termites, and toilets, and you could keep the passive income coming in? And if God forbid something happened to you, your heirs would not have to deal with the house having to fix it up, sell it, whatever. They could keep that mailbox money coming in every single month, right? And not to mention the fact that it's going to save you a lot of money on taxes, okay? And then what I do is I encourage them to go talk to their CPA. I'll give them some numbers, encourage them to talk to their CPA, and their CPA, of course, is going to tell them, yeah, this will save you a lot of money on taxes, right? So we get quite a few deals. I shouldn't say quite a few, but we get, I don't know, maybe one or two a month like that, doing seller financing with our seller. And guess what? No money down. Sometimes I get no payments for 90 days, and sometimes I get 3% interest.
Wow. That's amazing.
Typically it's 4. The most I pay is 5, but typically 4, sometimes 3. I've started inching down, and I'm asking everybody for 3% now.
3%. That's crazy. Now, 3%, but are those typically those lower priced houses, the 10, 20, $30,000 acquisition prices?
Could be, yeah. I mean, we buy some that are more. I gave one guy just the other day, I gave him, and we buy all of our stuff over the phone, but I gave him 3 prices. I said, at first I said 30,000 cash, but he was stuck at 70. He wanted 70. I said, I can pay you 70,000. I said, I can pay you 70,000, but we need to talk about terms. So I did either 30,000 cash or 70,000 terms. He said, well, what about a down payment? Well, how much payment do you want? Down payment do you want? He said, I need 20%. I said, okay. So I can do 30,000 cash. I could do 40,000 with 20% down, or I could do 70,000 with no money down, right?
And low interest, right?
Right, exactly. And they're like, yeah, what about the down payment? So here's another good thing that you can say, guys, write this down, okay? Is, well, I can't make a double down payment. Whoa, what are you talking about, a double down payment? Well, I'm already going to rehab the house, and that's my down payment right there. I'm fixing up your house, right?
I like
So
that.
if I have to pay you money and put money into the house, that's a double down payment, right? So that's a really good thing to use when you're talking with sellers. The other thing, did you notice I said a minute ago, if God forbid something should happen to you, you don't say when you die, right? You say if God forbid something should happen to you, then your heirs are able to keep getting that check every single month. And when I'm on the phone, I'm doing this every single month. That check comes just like clockwork. Just like
Is that a
clockwork.
landline phone you have there?
Yeah, it's an old phone. We use smartphone through the computer, but if I'm on the phone,
I guess you said you're in your office, huh?
yeah, I'm in my office. Yeah.
Okay.
And I do have a landline, but we use smartphone, which is through the computer, and there's a smartphone app as well. And yeah, but that's just my desktop phone. I don't buy houses on that phone, but I just used it as an example. I
Yeah.
could go like this.
No, that's a good point. I'm glad you finished off with that, because there are a lot of people, like the competition's crazy. Sellers are getting smart and understanding that they can call multiple people. And sometimes it's hard to meet their price. So if you can come up with a creative way to get them their price and get it on the terms that you want, you could potentially make some deals happen that you normally wouldn't be able to.
Sure,
Do
absolutely.
you remember Richard Rube Dan Duran?
Oh yeah. I
They
know
used
this
to
guy.
teach that. I can't remember what they called that, but they would, I think they called, I can't remember the name of it, but basically they would do the same thing. They would say, I can meet your price, but you
I
need to
probably
find
have
people.
it over there somewhere. I've got 2 other bookcases over there.
I probably have it somewhere too. But yeah, they say you can meet their price, but ask them for 0% interest. And so basically when you ask for 0% interest, every single dollar that's going to them is going towards principal. So as you know,
Exactly.
principal and interest, typically when you start, 80% or whatever the number is goes towards interest. So really, when you're paying 70,000 for the property, in other terms, you're paying closer to that 30 to 40 that you're talking about. So that's good
Right,
stuff.
right. The other thing you can do about the down payment is look, instead of giving you a down payment, why don't I prepay the first year in advance? Now you have no payments for a year,
Right.
but you've just prepaid that, and you have no payments for an entire year, right?
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, cool, Larry. Well, I appreciate you. I got into the business 20 years ago, and I think you started doing online education probably, what, 15 years ago or so? So you,
2004, I believe. Yeah.
okay, so you were actually one of the first people that I started following back in the day. I don't think I ever told you that. So,
Really, that's pretty cool.
like you, Richard Rube, Dan Duran, which I don't even know if they're around doing that stuff anymore. Then Chris Chico came around and all these other guys. But I think you are the one that I followed the longest ago. And so it was really good to meet you a few years ago. And I'm glad we could stay in touch and
That's awesome.
you can share some good stuff with our listeners. So,
That's really cool, man. I really appreciate you thinking of me and having me on. I hope everybody got a lot out of it. There's so many things out there about real estate. That's one of the cool things I love about real estate. There's so many things you can do with it. So you can pick and choose what you like and what you don't like. Do what you like, because if you're doing what you like, you'll stick with it. If I had to do short sales every day, I'd go down to McDonald's and flip burgers because I hate short sales, right? So there's so many different things you can do with real estate. Just find what you like and run with it.
yeah, good stuff. Actually, I almost forgot to ask one question. I'd like to ask this question. If you had $10,000 to spend right now and you could only spend it in one thing, doesn't matter what it is, but something that could bring the most return to you, again, whatever it is, personal, professionally, what would you spend that $10,000 on?
Wow, $10,000 bring the most return. Probably be a house. Really, I mean, I buy a lot of houses for $5,000, $10,000, so it would probably be a house. I could double the money pretty quick.
Right. Okay, good stuff. Well, cool. Thanks again, Larry. Good nuggets there. Look forward to catching up again soon and really appreciate you.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.